Karen Grassle is known to so many of us for her warm and confident portrayal of Caroline Ingalls on the television series Little House on the Prairie. We invited the Ingalls family into our homes every week, and I, for one, truly enjoyed this family drama after having read the series of books on which it was based by Laura Ingalls Wilder. But there is so very much more to Karen Grassle, as we will discover. Without further ado, it is my very great pleasure to welcome Karen Grassle.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Karen, there are so many interesting things about you that I hardly know where to begin. Let's start with your new memoir, Bright Lights, Prairie Dust.
Okay.
So the idea of writing a memoir came when you moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and experienced a flood of memories. If I may quote you, memory called and I followed. So along came a memoir writing course, and with the help of decades of journals, the amazing result was Bright Lights, Prairie Dust. Can you walk us through your process of recollection and writing, and are you proud of your achievement?
Well, thank you for asking. When I began, I didn't know what value there would be, but I thought at least my son would be interested in these memories and in the earlier chapters of his family. So then I took this course in memoir writing and I got hooked. And then a group of us started a group, and we've been writing together now for over 11 years. And we meet every single week, and we encourage each other and support each other in our writing. So that's been tremendous, new friends, a kind of deeper way of relating to each other, and wonderful support with each of our projects. When we began, there were no authors amongst us. We were all novices. We had all lived interesting, active lives. And during our writing these years, 4 of us have published books.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just shows, if you stick with it, it's amazing what can happen.
A lot of celebration should be going on between all of you.
Well, we've celebrated each one as they've come, It's been fantastic. And for me, I'm very, I don't know if proud of myself is the right word, but I'm very glad that I hung in there and saw it all the way through.
I'm very glad you did too. It was a wonderful read.
Thanks.
So while we're on the subject of memory, now seems like the perfect time to chat about your 2021 film, Not to Forget. You portray a woman named Miss Melody who has Alzheimer's. I quite loved that film. I really did. You had such a sensitive portrayal and very good acting, may I say. So that scene where you explained to your grandson about you being the queen of corn, that was my very favorite. But this film's theme strikes a chord in your own heart too. Can you tell us why?
Yes. My own mother, in the last chapter, suffered from dementia. And she did not have Alzheimer's, but she had a kind of dementia. It was not the kind of dementia that makes you mean. She was sweet, and she was still very capable in many ways. Like she could still get up and take her own bath and so on. Sorry. We were very, very lucky because she had moved in with my sister and brother-in-law when they all moved from Ventura, my hometown, to Washington State, to a farm, and started a whole new life there. So she was well adapted to the surroundings and had her own room and bathroom and everything when her mind started to fail. And, you know, it was very slow, but very noticeable. And for me, usually living across the country, I would notice it more than my sister and brother-in-law because I would come home and see a bigger difference. So that was hard, but I was so lucky because my sister was a fantastic caregiver and my brother-in-law so patient, and he said to me, "She's no trouble." just amazing. They were just amazing with her.
That's quite a bit of comfort to you, I'm sure.
Tremendous. I could never possibly repay them.
No. So changing veins a little bit to your story times, in preparation for this interview, I came across the most happy discovery that I never expected to find on your website. You have posted over 40 storytime videos, in each of which you spend a few minutes reading these wonderful children's stories to us, and then you follow it up with a personal message that makes it seem like you were reading the story just for us. Like I know I felt that way myself. And then you give us this wonderful walkthrough of the illustrations, a nice long look at them. And I just loved your delivery. But you must have had so much fun selecting them. Were they your childhood favorites?
Thank you. During the pandemic, I felt so strongly for the parents who were at home with their children with hours and hours to fill. And I was isolated in my house alone. And I couldn't have company. I couldn't have people coming and going because we didn't know yet, you know, what would happen. And I thought, what can I contribute during this time? And so I came up with this because you can self-record on your phone. I ordered a little tripod and figured out, you know, how to turn it on and off. And my part-time assistant, Jamie, who's very technically astute, she would then edit out the awkward part at the beginning where I was getting it going and getting settled in the chair and so on. And then I started posting them. And first it was just with, you know, friends that had young children. And I got to be friends with some children because of it. And it was really, really rewarding thing for me. And once a week, I got to be Karen Grassle actress, you know, and appear on the screen and do what I know how to do, which I think was good for my morale in the midst of that.
I bet it was. I can see that. And just stepping back into whatever character you wanted to be.
And I started out with my very favorite book from my childhood, which is called Stories That Never Grow Old. And when I started, I thought, I'll just do these stories. But then I got so into it, you know, and people liked it. So then Jamie started helping me with the library to get more books. And sometimes people would recommend to me, you know, you might want to try this one or that one. And I couldn't always get what I had read to my son, but sometimes I could. So it was a really fun project. And then it just seemed to come to a conclusion. I think what happened was I got very, very busy with the final stages of the book and the promotion of the book.
Well, it's a nice chapter that we can just drop in and enjoy it. I've seen quite a few of them. The first one I went for was The Night Before Christmas, because I love Christmas. And then When Spring Comes, and the Brementown Musicians. I love that story. And then Wherever You Are, My Love Will Find You. And the one that explained COVID so well to a young audience, Why We Stay Home. That was terrific.
You know, that was put on PBS here in the States, and it was made available in a digital form so that everybody could download it free during the pandemic so they could read it to their kids. And I thought, oh, such a great public service, though I thought I should read it and show those pictures.
And you did so well, really. If you ever want to pick that up again, we're all waiting.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
So you mentioned briefly the group that you have been writing with, and they're known as the Addison Street Writing Circle. So would you tell us about these talented women and how you collectively published Berries from Brambles?
Yes, our first year together, actually, maybe we hadn't even been together a year. At Christmas time, I said, why don't we all make a favorite recipe that we have, you know, good memories about, and bring it in on the day of our meeting and write a short piece about it. So we did that. And then as we came to the end of the year, we thought, what if we made a collection of our pieces and bound them together, and each of us could have some and share it with our families? So that's when we had to come up with a name for our collection, and that's where we got Berries from Brambles. And we were about 10, 12 of us, and over the years, some people have said, well, I'm going to go focus on something else now, but then other writers have come in. And so we're a pretty solid group for a long time now at 10. So one of our members very bravely decided to self-publish her memoir this past year. And let's see, it came out in February. So it's this year. And she's very, very good technically, and a librarian, former librarian. Yeah, so she's very good on detail. So she said, well, she thought that she could take our Berries from Brambles collection this year and do it as a self-published little book instead of the usual spiral-bound copy that we put together and then take over to the Bancroft Library for their collection. So that's what she did. And at one point she said, oh boy, I got to have more help here. And two of the people started meeting with her weekly to get it done. And so that's how it came to be. And we were able to put it on Amazon and, you know, be official. So it's a big accomplishment for us.
Oh, I'm sure. I can just tell how good it feels just by hearing you talk about it. And I've seen it on Amazon. It's got such a beautiful cover.
Doesn't it have a lovely cover? One of our members designed that years ago. And it was so good, we've just stayed with it for years. And we have, we have her. She's a graphic designer and a former librarian. We have former city auditor of Berkeley. We have a woman who was an attorney and became, what do you call it, when you help people resolve problems?
Counselor, advocate.
Anyway, instead of being a lawyer, you help people resolve problems. And she's fantastic. We have such a great group. Kate Pope, who I'm going to go see later this afternoon, is now 92 years old. She's been writing with us the whole time. Absolutely remarkable woman who had a career helping people discover their own careers. but also was middle-aged competitive female skier and a mountain climber.
Oh, no.
Her last name, her maiden last name was Strong. So you get a picture.
I do. Oh my goodness. What a group. And the friendships. Never mind the writing and the history, just the strong friendships you must have.
That's right. And the things that people have discovered about themselves in this process, you know. We have two who are immigrants. We have two or three who are first generation. We have people who didn't know their Jewish background while they were growing up, but discovered it later. So all kinds of fascinating stories. Yeah, it's been great.
Aw. Well, thank you for sharing all that about them. I was curious. I was very curious. So
I'm hopeful some people will read it because every piece is totally different than every other piece. And so if you don't like one, you might like another. And it's really fun.
Oh, I'm going to have to get one now. I want to read your piece first.
Thank you.
So we would be remiss if we didn't chat about one of your most recognized roles, that of Caroline Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. I declare you absolutely succeeded in bringing this warm character to life. Through 8 seasons, 180 episodes, your character was strong and gentle, loving and firm, brave and confident. Had you read the Little House books? Were these characters known to you or new to you?
When I was cast in the show, I had never read any of the Little House books. And we were going to go to work about 10 days later. So I got the Little House in the Big Woods and the Little House on the Prairie, and I put those in my suitcase and took them with me on location to try to find out, you know, who was this family, where did they come from, and all that. And so I had a lot of catching up to do, you know. But I could identify with this character because, again, of my mother. My mother had been a one-room schoolhouse teacher. My mother had gone on barefoot to school. She had ridden a horse to school. She had played in the countryside and known Native Americans one-to-one. So I felt like I could take her character and bring that to Caroline.
So you based it on your mother, your portrayal. Aw, that's nice. That's so nice. Aw. So you've said that your favorite episode of them all was the pilot. Why is that?
Well, I love the authenticity of the pilot, you know, of this little family setting out alone, not knowing what's going to happen, being so tight, so close and dependent on each other. And the parents, you know, trying to cross whatever river comes up. And when they finally settle, the parents building this cabin, you know, and Carolyn sweeping the dirt floor. I mean, I just could really relate to all of that. And I felt like we were the same as the family because we went off to location. None of us knew each other. We were all getting to know each other while we were shooting that story. And it wasn't until Victor French came to play Mr. Edwards that there were any other actors, you know. And then the Indian chief, he was another actor, but basically it was just the family in the wilderness. I love that.
It was very endearing. I watched it just a while ago and I loved it too. But I think my favorite one was A Matter of Faith. I have never forgotten that episode. Can you describe it for us and how a role like that really showcased your talent?
Well, as you know, the story is of Caroline getting a little scratch from a wire on her leg when she's working in the wagon. She doesn't think anything about it and goes about her business. And then it starts to become red and infected. And she tries putting some dough on there, you know, because that was a kind of natural antibiotic. And that doesn't work. And she's alone because the family has all agreed to go on this big picnic for the church and everybody's going to be there. But Caroline has said, well, I've got to stay home and finish the pies for the picnic. So I'll ride with Reverend Alden when he goes on Sunday. But she gets very, very sick. And a lot of things happen. You know, she has a tremendous storm. She tries to rescue the cow that's out in the mud. She faints. She is trying so hard to get through this. And when Reverend Alden comes, she has left the pies on the cooling shelves on the porch. And he knocks on the door and she can't respond. So he says, oh, she must have gone on with the family, and off he goes. So no one is there. And she turns to her Bible because she knows this is serious. This is the end. And the Bible says, if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. So she figures she's supposed to cut off her leg, her lower leg. And she gets a big knife and then blackout. And next we find that she's well, she's in bed. Charles and the children are there. The doctor is there. Everything is fine because at that moment she had lanced the infection. The infection had poured out of her body instead of staying in her bloodstream. So it had saved her life.
That's like a one-woman show, really. That you had to do everything and survive.
That's what I like. You know, I like a challenge, and that was fun for me. Yeah,
you were really up for it. I'll tell you that. So
yeah.
you've said that this character, Caroline, is imprinted on people's hearts, and that you believe Caroline was in real life the backbone of the Ingalls family, and I wholeheartedly agree. So of the many Caroline Ingalls quotes, there's one that I found was the most succinct, and I've used it in my life. What do you think of this one? Least said, soonest mended.
There is wisdom in that. You know, we've learned a lot about expressing ourselves and telling people our true feelings, but sometimes there's nothing to say.
Or you can say too much.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've never forgotten that. I remember reading it as a little girl, and I kept that with me since.
Marvelous. I didn't realize the impact that this character had had on people until after I wrote the book. And when I began to talk to people about it, the way people were responding to me because of this character was just so rewarding.
Very special character, very special lady. So your wide-ranging talents as an actress have been evident in so many of your roles. You've had guest appearances on Gunsmoke, Murder, She Wrote, Love Boat, and then you co-wrote a screenplay and acted in a movie called Battered about domestic violence. That I saw that one again recently. That was an eye-opener for many, I'm sure. And a different kind of a role followed that for you, and advocacy for the ERA.
Yes. Well, I had been interested in girls getting equality all my life. And then partly because of the work that Cynthia and I did to research our script, we really got in the swim with what was going on in the feminist movement of the 70s. And so after our program aired, I became quite active in the Los Angeles ERA movement and did some lobbying and so forth to try to get the ERA passed. And we still don't have it. Women still don't have equal rights in the United States of America.
Well, you have tried, where not everyone has, I guess. So what were some of your other favorite roles throughout your career?
Well, of course, I loved Shakespeare. This was so thrilling for me to play Shakespeare. And I loved playing Rosalind in As You Like It, and Ophelia in Hamlet, and later Gertrude in Hamlet, and in New York playing in Cymbeline. I played Imogen with a group of marvelous men, actors, just so rewarding. Another play that really required a lot on lots of levels was a play called Wit, which was about an English professor who had stage 4 ovarian cancer. And in those days, ovarian cancer was a death sentence. And then the story goes about the various things the medical community does, experiments really, to see if they can affect it. You begin to get the idea that maybe they're more interested in the results of their experiment than they are in the human being that they're treating. And this is a great lesson for her because she has been such a dyed-in-the-wool intellectual, and she's been very tough on her students. But in the course of her cancer, she comes to be a more open human being.
Wow. So you've likely been a mentor to many people over your career, but I'm curious, who may have been a mentor for you?
Well, my voice teacher, Kristen Linklater, had a profound influence on me. I trained to be a voice teacher with her, and that gave me a second profession, which was very, very helpful, because acting is very insecure. So she was very important and became a good friend until we had a stupid spat and couldn't get it back, I think who else? Thomas Parkinson here at Berkeley was my favorite English professor because he was so morally astute and really gave us a lot of freedom in our writing.
Aww. So in the early part of your career, as you said, your dream was really to do Shakespeare with a repertory company instead of a television show. Your love of theater began in college, and then you went on to London, England in the 60s, and you were still studying it. But one story I really like is when you were acting in The Bashful Genius with George Bernard Shaw. And every day you would walk through an amusement park on the way there, and you'd have to ride the carousel because you were blissfully happy to just be working. To me, that illustrates what a charming, carefree person you really are.
Thank you. My first professional job out of New York City was The Bashful Genius. It was a tour that was going out in summer stock and planned to come into Broadway. And it starred a movie star by the name of Stephen Boyd as George Bernard Shaw. And the play was about Shaw as a young man, not by Shaw.
Okay.
And we went out to do the play and do rewrites and see if we could make it better, And I think our second date was in Denver at the Elitch Gardens Theater. which was an old summer stock house with big portraits all backstage of all these stars who had worked there. It was, there were a lot of theater ghosts in that place, and it was really wonderful to work there. And I was staying in a rented room not too far from the theater. And on my walk over to the theater, I would go through the amusement park, and I would just jump onto the carousel and go around. Oh, I don't know how long. And then go off to the theater and do my warm up, you know.
I can see the picture in my head. It must be such a wonderful memory for you.
Yeah, it is.
So you, as you said, you've also done Broadway on a few occasions. Theater seems to really be your passion. It's called to you throughout your life. Are you still involved in theater these days?
Before the pandemic, I was all set to do a Sondheim musical here in the Bay Area, but the pandemic scotched that. And so far, I haven't heard from them that they are picking that project up again. So at my age, the parts are definitely slimmer. So we'll just have to see what evolves, you know.
So in 2006, I discovered that you were acting in Winnipeg's Manitoba Theatre Group, playing Miss Daisy and driving Miss Daisy. I saw some clips on YouTube, and that was great fun. I would like to see the whole thing. But did you like working in Canada, and do you have any plans to do some other work up here?
The Manitoba Theatre Centre is a very fine old theatre. I think that building was built around 1970, but it had existed before the building. And they do very, very good work. And I was very happy to be invited to go there with this production of Daisy that had been created in my hometown of Ventura at a little theater called the Rubicon. And we were invited to come up to Manitoba with the production, which we did. And it was very rewarding. And I loved being there. And I loved the city of Winnipeg. A very, very dear friend of mine had grown up there. So as I would walk around the streets, I would think, well, she might have been here and she might have been there. And that was really nice.
Aww.
Yeah. Well, of course, I would love to work in Canada again, of course. I mean, there are so many good theaters there, and Canada still does the classics, whereas it's getting harder and harder to find theaters that are doing classics in the States now.
I know our Stratford and our Shaw theaters in Ontario, they're going strong.
Good.
Maybe we can get you to Ontario, Karen.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm sure Bright Lights Prairie Dust has established itself in many, many libraries, ours included. But does your busy schedule allow you to visit your local library now and then?
I haven't tried to do anything with the book in my local libraries. I think the pandemic kind of slowed everything down so much. And when I did go into one bookstore and say, you know, my book is coming out, she said, well, I can't do anything now. So that's an area that I hope to be able to do more of. Hoping to visit some libraries, not only locally, but in different places around the country.
I'm sure they'd welcome you with open arms, as we are doing today. So what importance do you feel libraries have in general in the world right now? And what are you currently reading?
Well, libraries are fantastic. First of all, I'd like to say that libraries are such a great resource. And I've seen that particularly for less advantaged people, students, the homeless. Libraries have become a resource for the homeless. A friend of mine was trying to teach her homeless friend how to use the library's computer in order to be able to get his needs met. I had my first library experience when I was 5. My mom took me to the library and I got my card and I could print Karen in all caps. And I was thrilled. And then we moved to the neighborhood where the library was. So it was only about 4 blocks. I would walk down there every summer, especially. They would have like a reading encouragement contest for the kids. And let's say one year it would be airplanes. So everybody would get an airplane with their name on it. And then you get a star for every book that you read. And then depending on your number of stars, your airplane would go up.
Aww.
So that was marvelous, you know, because it would keep you reading over the summer. And I could just get lost in books. I mean, my mother could call me. And I would say, and it was true, I didn't hear you.
Do you have any time to read these days?
Oh, yeah, I think it's so great to read. What am I reading now? I'm very slowly reading a book by George Saunders about how to write short stories. It's based on a course he gives at a university in New York. And in that book, he has short stories by Chekhov and Tolstoy and Gogol, and he uses those to teach the principles of writing. It's absolutely wonderful. And I recently finished a book called The New Tsar, a biography of Vladimir Putin. That was fascinating. Particularly, I was reading this as the war was starting in Ukraine, and one could feel the seeds of that conflict and how it was getting started so many years ago, and the choices that Putin had made over the years. It was really, really informative.
Wow.
Yeah, really good. And then I read a wonderful novel called The Henna Artist. We have a regular author event here in Berkeley every year for women authors. And they sell a fairly expensive ticket for women to come and spend the day, have breakfast, hear authors, have lunch, hear more authors. And I heard this woman at this luncheon tell the story of how she wrote this book, which is also inspired by her mother. And it is so fascinating because it's about a culture that I know practically nothing about. You know, in India, after independence, what it was like to be a woman there, what the rules were, what the people wore. Oh, it's just fascinating.
We have that book at our library, and now I'm going to have to read that, you know.
Oh, you'll love it. I mean, I'm surprised you can keep it in.
Thank you for the recommendation. So when writing a memoir, one spends a great deal of time reflecting on one's life, big steps, all the little ones in between, all the lives that intertwine with yours. How are you enjoying the passage of time in your own life?
The passage of time. The passage of time. You know, when you're active, the passage of time is like, oh, I'm running out of time today. But then you finish a big project like Bright Lights, Prairie Dust, as I did. And then you have your 80th birthday and you go, wow, a lot of time has passed. And you don't know what's left. You don't know what portion is left to you. And I read a quote. It was something like, at the end of my life, I cast about for something worthwhile to do. I would like to end on a bright point.
Well, that's perfect. Awesome. If anyone can, you can.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you.
But I hope that's a long time away.
Me too.
So I'm curious to know what your next adventure might be. Can you give us a sneak preview if you know what it's going to be?
Well, I am going to get out in the world a little bit. I'm going to do some autograph shows and some book events, and hopefully, meet some people and be out in the world more. It's been a long period of mostly isolation. And I am writing. I don't know what it's going to amount to, but I am writing and having fun with it.
That's good to hear. We'd always like to read more from you.
Thank you.
So as our time together is now drawing to a close, I'd like to share a scene from the book Little House on the Prairie. I never heard a mockingbird sing so early, said Ma, and Pa answered softly, he is telling us goodbye. So Karen, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you today. I've always admired you. I've learned so many fascinating things about you. I wish you all the success, happiness, and peace that life can send your way. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, Laura, thank you so much for your generosity. Really appreciate it. And there's one other thing I meant to talk about, but because you are a librarian, you might be interested to know about this book called Dementia Reimagined.
Oh,
this came out just about the time that I was making that movie, Not to Forget. And it's by Dr. Tia Powell. And it really stresses that we are going to be facing an onslaught of this, and that we have got to find a new way to think about it and not be thinking just about curing it, which it may never be cured, but how to handle it in reality. And it's a wonderful book. Her mother had dementia, so she speaks from experience.
That sounds like a really good book.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for your time today. I can't tell you how much fun it was to meet you. You really are a genuine, likable person. Really.
Thank you. You got to see my messy office too.
Oh, not even looking at it.
Thanks again, Laura. Take good care.